Welcome to my channel. My name is Diva. I'm your host, and I am on a journey of telling my story in hopes of helping other people through their grief, in helping other people through their family dysfunction, and helping us create a community of people so that we don't feel so alone. So, I am on part 2. If you've watched part 1, you know a little bit of the whole story, but here's where we take a deep dive and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. So hit that subscribe button and make sure to come back for parts 3 to 100. Believe me, buckle up. This is going to get good. So, you know that I'm here talking about one of the most pivotal changes that happened in my life, which was my brother's death. And I have to be careful because we can't say certain things on YouTube. My brother chose to unalive himself, and that death is never easy. Losing somebody we love is never easy. Losing someone in such a traumatic way can be even more complicated than anyone can comprehend. And in a community of people, I'm part of many survivor groups, we all say, we joined a club, we got membership to a club we never wanted to join. And that's because generally across the board, there's not an understanding of what that kind of loss is like. And everybody experiences grief. Everybody loses someone. And unfortunately, that is just a fact in life. We will spend an eternity trying to figure out how to cope with grief, because we will lose not just one person, we will lose multiple people in our lifetime. And it sucks. Grief sucks. And it is an awful part of our human existence. When you lose somebody tragically and suddenly, it can add complications to that grief journey that you could never comprehend if you haven't experienced it. And so I'm here to try and explain a little bit about what that looks like and what that experience is like. And here's the thing, so few people want to hear about it. But I think the more we ignore it, the more we set ourselves up for failure for when and if that ever does happen in that manner. It's kind of like us not being willing to talk about grief or not being able to talk about death. It's uncomfortable. We don't want to think about that. Why are we going to talk about death? That's down the road. We hope it's down the road. But the reality is we never know, right? We hear the platitudes of, we don't know what tomorrow may bring, so make today count. But there's such truth in that. Life and death can happen in an instant. We talk about life all the time. We talk about birth all the time and the magic or the miracle of birth. But we don't have that conversation about death. Why? Because we fear it, and we do not talk about that which we fear. We think maybe we will manifest that into our lives. Maybe we will attract that happening, and we don't ever want to think about that. We don't want to address the fact that we will eventually lose people we love in our lives. We prepare for everything else in our life. We prepare to go back to school every year. We prepare by going and getting the things that we need to make sure we're well equipped to handle that first day of school and the subsequent school year that follows. So why don't we prepare for death? Why don't we have these conversations with our loved ones to find out what do they want in the event of their death, or in the event of being in a position where they can't make decisions at the end of their life that impact them. I read a really amazing book by a friend of mine, Dr. Blair Bigham, called Death Interrupted. Fabulous book. Highly recommend it. I read it at first because he's a friend and I wanted to support him, but I thought I am not going to understand anything in this book or his doctor talk. But I thought, I love you, Blair, so I'm going to read this book. And man, was it a great read, because he addresses the elephant in the room. He addresses the things that we don't talk about, and that is planning death. How far do we go to support life and to maintain life, no matter what our quality of life may be at the end? But we don't talk about those tough decisions. Why? Why don't we talk about it? So Blair addresses that quite well in that book. And it really got me thinking, especially given my experience with my brother and subsequent people I've lost since. And I realize I see death very differently than most people. I'm a psychic medium. I communicate with spirit. So I have an understanding of the afterlife. I don't fear death anymore. But I know that's not everybody. And everybody doesn't have that gift. They can. I do believe everybody has the ability to be intuitive and to tap into that ability. But not everybody has that gift of seeing death in a way of it being like going home. And that's my firm belief, is that we go home. Whether you believe in heaven, hell, that's your belief, and I'm good with that. You do you. I don't necessarily believe in the heaven and hell thing, and from my experience and what I've been told, that's not what the afterlife is, that it is literally like going home, and we call it home because it's what's familiar to us. That being said, we don't have the conversations around the what ifs. We don't like to think about it. And when it happens to somebody, we tend not to want to talk about it either, because we're afraid we will inflict it upon ourselves, and we don't want to go there. So I lost some friends in the beginning because of that discomfort. And I understand that. I get it. It's uncomfortable to have to talk to somebody about losing somebody who is close to them, and in the way that I lost my brother. So I'm here to talk about that process, what that looked like, because I've never told my story. I've told it in bits and pieces, and I've told it to people who I'm close with. And every time I tell my story or a bit of my story to somebody, they tell me, oh my gosh, you should write a book. This is fascinating. Nobody would believe this happened, or nobody would believe this if they didn't know you. And it's true. Basically, nobody would believe this shit. I can't make it up. But it is my life. It is what I experienced, and I think it's worth talking about, especially if it only helps that one person who's sitting there feeling alone and feeling lost and feeling that they're in such turmoil and stuck in grief that they don't know how to get out, and they don't think that there is a way out. There is no light at the end of that tunnel. I want to be the person that holds them by the hand and says, walk with me. I'll get you there. It is possible. I am living proof that it's possible. So that being said, let's backtrack to the day my brother died. I was away on a weekend trip with a girlfriend. We went to Montreal for the weekend. It was the long weekend in May, and we had a great time. We were enjoying ourselves. It was nice to get away, to get out of the city. I was living in Toronto at the time, And we were having a great time. It was Sunday. We were preparing to go to breakfast. And I got a phone call from my father. And I chose not to answer that call because I didn't want to deal with him. My dad and I had a very precarious relationship at the best of times. And at that time, I needed space from my father. And part of it is he had forgotten my birthday. And that wasn't the sole reason, but that was just the catalyst in me going, you know what, I need to step back. I need a break. I need to regroup before I can deal with him anymore. And so this phone call came in at 11 in the morning, and I thought, oh, I'll call him back when I'm back home, and I can mentally deal with it. I can't do anything while I'm away, so I'll deal with him later, is what I said. And I had a very bad sleep the night before. I was having PTSD symptoms because 2 weeks prior, there was an intruder or intruders who came into my home. They broke into my condo and rifled through everything. The place was a mess, and they left a weapon at the door. The police believe it was with the intent to harm or kill me should I have come home in the act of their burglary. That set me on a course of anxiety, panic. They had broken my door literally in half, and the locksmith that came to fix the door put 2 sheets of metal together to piece it together. My door wasn't being held together by much. I was not feeling safe. It started my bout of insomnia. I wasn't sleeping. Any sound, I would wake up thinking somebody was trying to break in. I was sleeping with a stack of glasses in front of my door so that for sure I would hear if somebody was trying to get in from the clatter of the glasses falling over. I was not sleeping well. And that was the case that weekend. And the Saturday night, I was not able to fall asleep. So I was playing games on my phone. My friend Alana was asleep in the bed in our hotel room, in the other bed. And I was playing this game called 1001 Ways to Die. And I had never played it before. I was trying to figure it out. And there was an instance on this game, and there is relevance to why I'm talking about this game. There was an instance on this game where you had to save this character from being hit by a train. And my anxiety ramped up. I didn't save this character. It startled me, and I threw my phone, and I thought, what is that reaction? Why am I reacting so harshly to a game? And I looked at my watch. It was 4:30 in the morning. And I thought, this is crazy. I need to sleep. I don't know what that was about. I'm just panicked. It's just all the stress. I need to find a way to sleep. And so I put my phone away and I tried to sleep. The relevance of this will come into play later. So next morning, getting ready, avoided the call from my dad. We went for breakfast, got our stuff together. We were packing the car to drive back to Toronto. It was about a 6-hour drive. And at one point we switched. So Alana was driving and I was checking some messages on my phone. And there was a message from my cousin who said, "How are you doing?" I thought, oh, she must have heard about the break-in. So I messaged her back saying, "I'm okay, not sleeping well, but that's to be expected." And she said, "I can't stop crying. I know we weren't close, but he was my cousin too." I was like, what? That wasn't tying into what I was thinking we were talking about. So I thought, what is she talking about? So I thought, okay, maybe I should listen to the message from my dad. So over Bluetooth, I listened to my dad's message, which was, "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you can find it in your heart to call me back." Pause. "Your brother was killed last night. Call me." End of message. I didn't know how to process that information. And the fact that I was listening to that information on a voice message was hard for me to process. Upon hearing it, there was an audible gasp from Alana as she was driving. And all I could think of is, thank God I'm not driving right now. And I remember looking out the passenger window and seeing the world go by very slowly. It's like the world was slowing down. I was in slow motion. And I was trying to process the information that I was given in that voice message. And I thought, this isn't real. This isn't happening. My dad's overreacting. My dad's lying, which was also possible. Why would he lie about that? He wouldn't lie about that. Would he lie about that? So I called my father and got more of the details. He wasn't lying. He said that it was early morning and he was out cleaning his car when the police pulled up at his house and gave him the news that my brother was gone. I'm going to say trigger warning for what I'm about to say. So if you want to skip forward, I will see if I can figure out where to skip to so that you can move forward. So my father proceeded to tell me that the police told them that they believe my brother took his own life by lying down in front of a train. When my dad told me that, again, I didn't know how to process that information. And I had so many questions, I didn't even know where to begin. And I said, when? When did this happen? How? How did this happen? My brother was on house arrest at the time. So how was he out of the house? So my dad told me that he thought my brother deserved some time out with his friends and had driven him to a party where I guess things went down. My brother left the party to walk home, and he walked via the railroad tracks and made the decision, I'm assuming. So I had questions. Why did my dad think it was okay if my brother was on house arrest to go to a party? Why would my dad drive him to said party when he knows he's on house arrest? That made no sense to me. That's against the law. What? How? And my dad said his time of death was 4:30 in the morning. This is where it ties back to me playing that game, trying to save that character from being hit by a train, and me throwing my phone at 4:30 in the morning. Because my brother That character was my brother. So I got off the phone with my dad and I called my mom immediately because I asked him if my mom knew. He said yes. So I called my mom and my mom's like, oh God, he told you? I told him not to tell you. I was like, why? She said, Diva, I told him. She said, what? You're stuck in a car for all these hours. I told him, wait until you got home because there's nothing you could do. Why would he do that? I told him not to do that. I knew exactly why my dad did that. Because he wanted to beat my mom to the punch. He wanted to be the one to tell me. He wanted to beat my mom. It was all about getting one up on her. And he didn't listen to my mom when she said to him, don't tell Diva yet. She's on a trip. Let her at least get home, because if we tell her now, she's going to be stuck in that car for 6 hours and can't do anything. In true fashion of my father and his narcissistic ways, he wanted to beat my mom to the punch, and he called me anyway, knowing that telling me that information meant I would have to sit in that car and stew and feel helpless because there's nothing I could do and I couldn't be around them. So my mom was angry and hurt and reeling from that information as well. And she started to cry because I said, this is ridiculous. We don't need to start fighting now. We've got enough to deal with. And my mom started crying. She goes, yeah, but Diva, he said he won't tell me where to go to talk to the police because he said he's going to see the police tomorrow and he won't let me come. And I said, okay, I'll call you back. And I called my dad back and I said, listen, we are doing this as a family, the three of us, you, me, mom, we're in this, whether you like it or not. I said, we will be at that police station tomorrow and you will give me that information because we have a right to the information that will be given. Why my dad wanted to exclude us from that, I don't know. I don't know what his motives are. Maybe he wanted to protect us. I doubt it. Maybe it's because things went down very differently than he was telling us. That's my assumption based on information that came later. I don't know. I don't know what his I don't know what he was thinking. So I finally got home. I had to get myself in order. I had to pack clothes knowing I had to go to my parents' house, my parents being my mom and stepfather. And I had to call work to tell them what happened, that I would not be into work the next day. And I went to my parents, my mom's house. And I walked in there, and there was nobody there but my mom and my stepfather. Nobody. So we all learn my brother just died, and my mom and stepfather are alone in the house. My grandmother wasn't there. None of my aunts and uncles were there. I couldn't believe it. So I said to my mom, were they here before? Like, did people come? She said, no. I was shocked. So none of my mom's siblings came. My grandmother did not come to support her daughter who just lost her son. No. There were so many things just in the 8 hours from the time I found out to the time I got to my parents' house. I was in such disbelief. I couldn't believe what was happening. I couldn't believe what was not happening. And I couldn't believe that we were even having to deal with any of this. So I'm going to end this video here because I think it's important that my mom is part of the story. We haven't talked about when we went to the police station since that day, and I think it's important for her to be here when I tell you about what went down when we went to get the police report. So you can see just from this little tidbit already the dysfunction, the lack of communication, the impact of finding out my brother was gone, my brother died, my brother chose to die, and I was not processing it well. I was avoiding processing it at all. I kept trying to think of what I could be doing to help my mom, to support my dad, even though I was frustrated with him, to think about, I've got all this stuff at work I have to do. It was at the end of the school year. I had a big concert I had to focus on. And I thought I had to be all those things to all those people. And I stopped being there for me. It was easier for me not to face myself. So stay tuned for part 3, and we're going to do a deep dive into what that looked like when we went to the police station. So somebody want to tell my mom that she's going to be doing that with me? She doesn't know yet. She'll oblige, right, Mom? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for allowing me this space to tell my story in its entirety. And thank you for holding my hand as I do this and giving me the courage. So again, smash that subscribe button and tune in for part 3.